Thank you all for supporting my banking awareness series. Now, many of you asked me to put them all into a single playlist. So I've made the playlist. You can check out the first video from there. In this video, we are going to talk about the history of banks in India. Let's start. Hi, this is Supriyo. Banking in India. The story of how banking in India has evolved over the years is a fascinating story, and I won't be able to do justice in short videos like these, but I will definitely try that. And I want you to have an appreciation of this entire story. So just think of these things as a story that you are not studying, you're just seeing a story. So let's begin. Banking in India. So we are beginning right at the start, the ancient times to the 1700s. Now a lot of people will have said to you that East India Company and the Europeans brought the banking system to India, but that is not fully true, because our Vedas and Sutras, they mention the usury. So basically the usury, they are actually exorbitant rates right now. That is the definition. However, in the medieval times, in the early times, what used to happen that some classes of people were given loans by some money lenders, and depending on your social class, your interest rate was fixed. So that was the system under which ancient India used to have that loan system. So we used to have it for a long time. And we also have the mention of these kinds of banking systems in the Jatakas, the Dharma Shastras, and also Chanakya in his books. He has mentioned loan deeds, or the Rinpatra or the Ranapatra or the Ranalekhya. So these were the things that were mentioned in the medieval texts that we actually have, and this tells us that banking in India had propagated quite a lot in those times as well. In fact, in the 12th century, Indians used to do banking. That is widely known, and even the important thing that had developed during this time were the hundis. So in the 12th century, we used to have hundis, which were basically credit instruments. Now, many people believe that hundis are the oldest credit instruments known to man, and these hundis, they were basically used for trade transactions. They were often used to transfer funds from one location to another, and they were also used to actually just pay off debts, or they were used to take credit. So they acted as bills of exchange as well. So the hundis, they were very important instruments, and you can remember maybe from the last video that I had mentioned that the Italians started it around the same time. So both Indians and Italians, we had started around the same time, but the Indian history is almost wiped out. We must remember these things. So remember hundis, because these are very important credit instruments, and sometimes questions can be formed from that. Then we had in the Mughal era the loan deeds, which were the dastaveez. So the dastaveez, they were the different loan deeds that the Mughals used to execute, and they used to have some authoritarian figure which would oversee the execution of these loan deeds, and that is how the loan system was actually promulgated. And these things were done in ancient India before the East India Company set foot in India, and after that we know most of the things. So in 1770, the Bank of Hindustan was actually formed. Messrs. Alexander and Company had actually formed the Bank of Hindustan, and it ran till 1829 to 1832. During this time, this bank was liquidated because of some crisis that had happened, the commerce crisis. And in 1786, we had another important bank, the General Bank of India, but this too failed in 1791. So both these things, they were among the earliest official banking systems, you can say, in India. And then we go to the 1800s. So in the 1800s, we see a lot of different parts of India opening up to banking. There were the presidency banks, and these banks were among the first ones which had widely gained recognition. Now the first one, it was the Bank of Calcutta, which was founded in 1806, and later on the name of Bank of Calcutta was changed to Bank of Bengal. This was done in 1809. So these dates are very important, note that. And then we had the Bank of Bombay in 1840, Bank of Madras in 1843. So these were the three main presidency banks that we had in India. Now what happened? In 1865, Allahabad Bank was actually founded, and it had been the oldest surviving joint stock bank in India till 2020. So what is the joint stock bank? It means a bank which is formed with multiple shareholders. So multiple shareholders have actually started that bank, and Allahabad Bank, it had survived till 2020. After that, what happened? We all know it was merged with the Indian Bank in 2020. So this was the oldest surviving joint stock bank in India till 2020. But right now, if anybody asks you which is the oldest surviving, you have to say SBI, State Bank of India. Also remember that in 1881 we had the Audh Commercial Bank. So this was also a very important bank because it was the first limited liability bank in India. So limited liability means that the liability of the shareholders was actually limited by the amount that they had invested. So they did not have infinite liability in case there was a liquidation event. So Audh Commercial Bank, this bank survived till 1958, after which it was actually wound up. So this is also a very important thing to remember. And the next thing you have to remember is that the first foreign bank. So the first foreign bank, the office of the first foreign bank that was opened in India, it was by Standard Chartered Bank in 1858. Now at that point of time, it was just called the Chartered Bank. And also you have to remember that during the same time, there was another bank called the Greenlace Bank. So this was sometime in the 1960s that the Greenlace Bank started its operations in India. So Standard Chartered and Greenlace, these were the first foreign banks to make their mark in India. And also in 1894, PNB, Punjab National Bank, was formed. It was the first bank that had been formed wholly by Indian capital. So many people say that Punjab National Bank was the first truly Swadeshi Indian bank. And also remember that Lala Lajpat Rai was involved in the founding of this PNB. But some people, they will tell you that the Central Bank of India, which was actually formed in 1911, this is the first Swadeshi bank. Now there is a dispute between the two. Some say Central Bank of India and some say Punjab National Bank. For me, I think that Punjab National Bank should be getting this honor because they were the first that was totally managed by the Indians and with Indian capital as well. So let's move to the next phase of banking in India, which is the 1900s. World War I began, and we know that during the first part of the 1900s, we had two world wars. So the first world war, this was a very brutal affair, and at that point of time India was a colony of the British Empire and we were forced into this war. There was a lot of chaos and around 94 banks failed in India after the world war and during the world war actually. Because of the war, some industries were helped but many others were very much damaged, and there was a need to fix this kind of a situation. So in 1921 there was the amalgamation of the presidency banks. Which were the presidency banks? As we talked about, Bank of Bengal, Bank of Madras and Bank of Bombay. These three presidency banks were actually merged to form the Imperial Bank of India, IBI. So in 1921 they had the amalgamation. Now remember that still during this time this was a private bank and not nationalized till that time. So after this, what happened? In 1926 we had another important development, which was the Hilton Young Commission. The Hilton Young Commission. So what was the name of this commission? It was called the Royal Commission on Indian Currency, and this was the first commission that recommended the establishment of a central bank of India. Now remember that at that point of time the Imperial Bank and all the other banks, they were kind of self-regulatory and all of them performed the duties of the Central Bank of India. And this commission actually wanted to streamline things, and this was an order of the British Empire because they wanted their colonies to have all equivalent kind of commercial setup, equivalent kind of economy. So they wanted central banks to actually regulate all those things. Now after 1926 this idea had actually just vanished, but in 1931 it was again revived, and leading to that in 1934 we had the Reserve Bank of India Act. So remember that the Reserve Bank of India Act, it was enacted in 1934, not 1935. It was in 1934. Then, because of that act, in April 1, 1935, the Reserve Bank of India was actually formed. So the act was in 1934 and the bank, it was actually formed in 1935. In 1949, the Reserve Bank of India was nationalized, and always remember the first governor of the Reserve Bank of India, it was a British gentleman by the name of Osborne Smith, and the first Indian governor of the Reserve Bank of India, it was C.D. Deshmukh. Now all these things we will be discussing in the video on Reserve Bank of India, so I'm not getting into details of that. In 1955, what happened? So remember that at that point of time we had our independence, and there was a need to actually have a major banking setup which was owned by Indians for Indians. So the government decided in 1955 to actually enact the State Bank of India Act. So after this act was enacted, the Reserve Bank of India acquired the Imperial Bank, and it came to be known as the State Bank of India. On 1st July 1955, State Bank of India was born. Remember, very interesting thing that nobody talks about is that the Reserve Bank of India had the majority shareholding. It was around 59.7%, and very recently in 2009 the government actually bought it back, and that is how we now have the State Bank of India, which is totally owned by the government of India. Majority owner is government of India. And remember also the committee which had recommended the setup of the State Bank of India, it was the A.D. Gorwal committee. So it's a very important event in Indian banking history. The next major event, it happened in 1959 when the State Bank of India Subsidiary Banks Act was passed. So what did this act do? It actually allowed the 8 banks of the princely states to be called SBI associate banks. This was a very important step because all these princely states had their own state banks. So I'll just show it on the screen. So yes, these were the 8 banks that now came to be known as the State Bank of India associate banks. So they were actually now subsidiaries of the State Bank of India. Now also note that in 1963, the State Bank of Bikaner and the State Bank of Jaipur were actually merged, and it became the State Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur. Then what happened? In 2008, the State Bank of Saurashtra, it was merged into the State Bank of India. In 2010, State Bank of Indore was again merged into the State Bank of India, and in 2017 all the remaining banks that we had, the 5 different banks plus one more bank which is the Bharatiya Mahila Bank, all these 6 banks were now merged into State Bank of India in 2017. So now we do not have any kind of these princely state banks or the associate banks, we only have the State Bank of India. In the next session, we are going to continue with bank nationalization and the rest of the banking history, and the story is going to be continued. I hope you learned something from this video and that it was beneficial to you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you want to see more of these kinds of videos, please subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell so that you, my friend, do not miss any future update. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.